Hello and welcome to my home studio. My name is Chris Vaughn and I'm the clay studio manager at Burlington City Arts in Burlington, Vermont. Today I'll be demonstrating three of my favorite forms, both to throw and to teach: cylinders, bowls, and vases or bottle shapes. We are going to start today with a cylinder. Today I'm going to be throwing with Laguna's B-Mix 5. It's a smooth white clay body. It's really nice on the hands. Has a lot of stretch to it. I've been working with it to do some color inlay. It's been an ideal body for that. And I'm throwing on masonite bats. So you'll see that rather than leaving the bats dry like the wheelhead, I'm going to add some water to them. Let the masonite absorb that in, and then once the surface has lost its shine, attach the clay. For porous bats, having a little bit of a moisture on the surface can be nice to help the clay stick. So in throwing a cylinder, I'm going to center to a really rough draft of that shape. So looking ahead to my final form, it's not something that's going to have a straight-sided wall and a sort of flat floor. So I'm going to center to a hockey puck shape or tuna can shape, just to mimic my hand shape. My hands are going to fence the clay in on either side at 9 and 3. And my thumbs are going to work together to drill a hole straight down. I want to make sure to leave a little bit of clay at the base there. I don't want to go all the way through and turn my cylinder into a planter, but I'm trying to leave maybe about 1/4 of an inch of clay at the base. So from here, I'm going to open up. The two common ways I see this taught: first is the left hand drops in at 6 o'clock, and the right hand stacks on top and sort of the fingers curl back. I have found more recently what works best for me is to support the clay on the outside at about 3, 4 o'clock with my right hand, and use the fingers in my left hand on the inside to sort of pull out and plane a floor. My right hand just starts pushing back a little bit, bringing that top over. One of the biggest challenges in throwing cylinders is to maintain a vertical wall and to not have the wall splay out wide into a V or start becoming a bowl. Rounding that top back off into almost like a volcano or a cone is going to help manage that through the throwing process. I have my flat end stick that I'm going to go in and just tidy up the floor with. This is planing everything really flat from a functional detail, making sure that the inside of my cup, or if I choose to turn it into a mug, has a nice even floor, but it also is adding a lot of compression to the clay. So if we think about the clay like snow, when you go to make a snow wall, the tighter you pack it, the stronger it's going to be. Same thing goes for clay. So the tighter I can compress those particles together, the stronger, more integrity that the floor is going to have, the less likely I'm going to see warpage or cracking through the drying and firing process. I'm going to give one little extra squeeze on the side at 9 and 3 to go even a little further on bringing that back to a volcano or a cone shape. And then from there, I'll begin my pulls. So my left hand is going to do the work. I've got my thumb set up on the outside. The pads of my fingers are going to be on the inside. This is going to be my pincher. And my right hand is going to support from the outside. I'm applying gentle pressure, slow and steady, all the way up And one of the things I like to uh, teach is to pretend that the wall is about an inch taller, especially for than it really is, especially for those new to the wheel. One of the trickiest spots can be dealing with the very top. There's so much concentration that goes into getting from the wheel head to the rim that once you get to that top spot, it's sort of like, oh, well, what do I do now? And letting go can be, a little tricky. So one of the things I like to do is just pretend that the rim is about an inch higher than it really is. And if I maintain that pull all the way through, the rim I've just let go of the rim in a really steady, natural way. I'm going to go back in and do a compression on the rim. I'm supporting on either side, whether that's with sort of a peace sign draped over or sort of a soft pinch. The pressure I'm going to apply is downward on the rim. Again, in our cylinder, our wall is going to be vertical. So we want to drive the compression straight back down the wall. My left hand is there just to support so that the piece doesn't collapse, the wall doesn't change shape. And every couple pulls, I'll go in and add a compression. So at this point in the pot, it's sort of a back and forth between pulling and compressing. The pulling is gaining height, the compression is gaining strength. And the other thing we'll introduce is a rib. So for those new to the pottery world, the clay world, these sort of paddle shapes or flat tools, there's all sorts of them out there, some made of wood, bamboo, plastics, metals, they're all called ribs. I really like this green flat-sided rib, especially for cylinders, because if the rib doesn't move, I can push against it from the inside and draw up any inconsistencies that are in the wall. It's also really nice that I don't have to add more water, especially as this pot starts to thin out. The introduction of more water is going to risk collapse. So switching from exclusively using my hands to engaging the clay with some ribs is going to limit how much water I have to use, and is really going to help the lifespan of the piece on the wheel. I'm going to cut away some of this excess at the bottom using a plastic or a wooden knife. I was taught how to do this with wooden knives, and so that's sort of my vernacular, but in practice, I've switched over to a plastic knife. And for a finishing touch, on the outside, I'm going to use a stainless steel rib. It's very similar in shape to the green plastic rib I've been using before. These stainless ribs are really good at just removing throwing marks, fingerprints. It leaves the surface really clean and sort of ready for whatever decorative surface treatment, whether that's slips or underglazes or looking all the way ahead to glazing. The metal rib just leaves the surface of the piece in great shape for whatever's next. And one last detail, I'm going to take my plastic chamois, drape that over the rim, and this is both going to compress and round things off. Particularly in a drinking vessel, it's nice to make sure we've got a soft, welcoming rim to drink from. I'm also going to use it to thin it out a little bit. And this can help give the overall piece an appearance of being a little bit lighter than it really is, a little more delicate than it is, while maintaining a sturdier wall underneath. So in a cylinder, we've got a flat floor, about a 90-degree angle in the corner, and an even wall top to bottom. The next piece we're going to throw is going to be a bowl. I'm starting with about a pound and a half of clay for this one. And the same rules of centering are going to apply to the bowl as did the cylinder. I'm going to center to a rough draft of the shape I want in the end. With a bowl, knowing that that's going to start narrower and flare out, I'm going to center to sort of a doorknob shape. So I'm going to go through my normal centering progression, make sure all the twists and knots are out, do a little coning up, a little coning down. And then once the mass of clay is well centered, I'll add a little bit of shape to that. So I'm pulling in at the bottom with my fingers to give that doorknob shape. Drilling down looks exactly the same for bowls as it did for cylinders. Thumbs are working together, hands on either side, fencing the clay in. And here's where things start to look really different between the bowl and the cylinder. Rather than aiming for a 90-degree corner or a flat floor and a straight vertical wall, with a bowl, we're looking for one continuous curve with a low spot at the bottom. So the way that we're going to open this is we'll get the hand set up about the same. Right hand is supporting from the outside, left hand is doing the work from the inside. As I'm curling my fingers and starting to pull outward, once my fingertips are straight down, pointed at the wheel head, I'm going to allow the whole hand to start climbing up and out. I'm curling my fingers, and right here my fingertips are pointed down, and my left hand just starts drawing up and out. So right from the get-go, we've got a curved shape on the inside rather than a corner. From here, I'm going to go over that curve with my left hand. Fingers in my left hand are sort of traveling up toward the rim and back down toward the center, just refining the interior profile. If I wanted a bowl that had a drastically different shape, here's where I could set that foundational curve to work from. But I like where this one's at, so I'll begin pulling. Rather than pulling straight up and down like we did in the cylinder, our pulls are going to follow the curve we set. So rather than straight up, it's an out and up. And just like in a cylinder, every couple pulls, I'm going to do a compression. However, rather than straight down, I want that compression to follow the path of the wall. So in this bowl, the force is set more at like a 45-degree. So here I'm in this sequence of pulls and compressions. Here looks about as good over the time as any to get the rib involved. So I've got I'm going to go back to my green plastic rib. And I'm holding that really anywhere between 6 and 3 and 6. on the wheel, and the rib is fanned away from me so that this edge is sort of pointed up toward the top of the wheel head. I've got a fair bit of downward pressure on it, and then my fingers down here are pushing against the rib. Here I might switch back to my hands, do one more pull. Sometimes you can gain height and move clay with the rib, but to really stretch the clay, I don't think anything beats using the hands. Especially on a piece that is this size. I'm gonna switch over to the plastic knife and cut off some of that excess at the bottom. And then one of the moves I really like is to use a metal and a plastic rib in tandem. So I've got my metal rib on the outside and my plastic rib on the inside. And I'm bending the metal rib so that the curve matches that of the rubber rib or the plastic rib. In this way, rather than trying to get the 10 points of my two hands to work together right now, I'm only having to get these two spots to work together. So the other nice thing is that they cover a lot of territory at once. As a final step, I'm going to come in with the metal rib from the top down, stretch the bowl a bit, and my goal is to not have to do a ton of trimming, but ultimately it is more important that I'm happy with the interior profile of the bowl. I can always put in a little extra work trimming to match the exterior profile to the interior, but just as a course of habit, I don't want to be trimming the inside of bowls. So I want to be totally satisfied with the inside before I take this off the wheel. Just like with our cylinder, I'm going to soften the rim. And some of that slip has built up, so I'll pass over once with the metal rib just to catch all that stuff. Pull it away. One tiny little more pass with the plastic. So there's our bowl. We've got a curve starting at the very bottom. The bottom is our low spot. And we've got, you can see our rough draft centered shape started narrow and flared out wide. Our final shape for today is going to be a bottle or vase. This is going to start looking like a cylinder. That's the shape that we're going to, we're going to center to a bit of a cone shape. But the way that we drill in and open up is going to look like the cylinder. Knowing that my end form is going to be wider and taper in, my rough draft centered shape is going to look like a cone. Drilling down is going to look exactly the same. Right and left palms fencing the clay on either side at 9 and 3, and my thumbs working together to drill a hole. Opening up is going to look just like with a cylinder. My right hand is supporting on the outside. My left hand is planing open. And my right hand pushes that clay back over, just to reiterate that conical shape, volcano shape that we centered to it, and that we're going to really try to preserve throughout the throwing process. So throwing a bottle or a vase is an exercise in weight management through the clay. So the whole time we're going to try to keep the top third heavier. Our pulls are going to extend through the entire wall, but as we approach the top third, we're going to ease the pressure off. So I'm pulling, and right about here, I'm easing off. I'm still moving clay, still doing a full pull, but I'm just not moving nearly as much. I don't want to end up with a really thick wall on top of a really thin wall. So I do want to continue to thin it out and move clay even in that top third. I just want to leave a little bit more. I'm going to do another one of those pulls. Right about here, easing up the pressure. I'm also driving with my right hand. My left hand is doing the pinching and pulling. My right hand is really pushing the wall, directing it inward. With cylinders with bottles and vases more than other forms, it's really important that we stay ahead of the fight against centrifugal force. So drawing the wall up and in using the outside hand or the right hand is going to be really helpful. So we'll do that one again, pulling up, and my right hand immediately is pushing in. And through here, I'm easing off the pressure. Okay, so right now I've got a shape that's about twice as tall as it is wide, which is a great place to start our collaring, which is the spot where our cylinder is really going to start taking on more of base shape or base profile. So at that 1/3 spot, I'm going to take either my index fingers and thumbs or the webbing between my index finger and thumb. I'm going to scoop in and up. I'm going to follow that all the way until I'm above the clay. And go back in and do another pass. And a compression. And I'll go back in to the spot where I started collaring and do a light pull. Collaring the clay in causes some off-centeredness to develop, and that correcting pull helps to work some of that out. Inevitably, that off-centeredness will get significant enough that I'm going to use my needle tool to cut a little ring off the top to bring it back to center. But for now, for at least a few pulls, I can deal with it enough with my fingers. Another one of those little correcting poles. And the compression. Sometimes it's also helpful to throw back down. So my fingers are set up the same way as they would be for pulling up, but I'm actually just moving some of the clay back downward. I'm going to take my plastic knife and cut off some of the excess at the bottom. Normally, this step is really just used to set up our trimming. But looking ahead, knowing that trimming this form is not going to be the easiest, just getting on its shape, keeping this upside down and stable, not nearly as easy as a cup or a mug. I'm going to try to do a little bit more of this. We'll call this wet trimming. So I'll take another pass with the plastic knife to try to get some of that centering taken care of, get it out of the way now while the clay is still wet and the form is still upright. From here, I've got my middle finger in the bottle, and I've got my metal rib on the outside. My middle finger is there as a support, so the bottle is just spinning around it, and my right hand with the rib is adjusting the shape, smoothing the surface, and adding those final touches to this bottle before we'll be done with it. Just trying to get the final little throw marks out. Set the surface of this bottle up for some of that inlay work I talked about earlier. The next step for these bottles or these forms after trimming will get covered in wax, and then using a series of blades and sharp poking objects, I'll cut through the wax, make an incision in the clay, and fill those areas with color. The wax is there as a mask so that I can use a moist sponge to clean up the surface without messing up the line work I put in there. And leaving the surface really smooth and clean is the sort of the best foundation for that work. I'll do one final pass with the knife.